HBO is developing a Baldur's Gate series with Craig Mazin attached, and early reporting frames it as a story set after Baldur's Gate 3, not a straight retelling. Continuing a game is where Hollywood gets maximum brand power and minimum creative restraint, which is how franchises get quietly hollowed out. We see this cycle repeating constantly, from the butchering of The Witcher, to the divisive path of The Last of Us, and now the vultures are circling Baldur's Gate 3. They can't just let a masterpiece exist, they have to continue it into the ground until the soul is gone. Your favorite tavern finally gets famous, and the next day a bunch of execs stroll in, wearing casual sneakers that cost more than your rent. Cute, right? Now imagine they're here to help. That's the vibe. I promise this is 100% organic human speech, mostly because an AI would definitely be much better at pronouncing these words than I am. Baldur's Gate 3 blew up in 2023 by doing something the industry keeps insisting is impossible. It made a slow choice-driven, dialogue-heavy RPG feel mainstream, without sanding down the weird parts. It's a game where you can talk your way past a boss, fail a persuasion roll, accidentally start a war, then reload, because you made decisions while hungry. That chaos isn't a bug, that's tabletop DNA, and tabletop DNA is exactly what Hollywood tries to bleach out. So yes, HBO wants in, Hasbro wants in, and you can already feel the pressure building. Not pressure to honor the game, pressure to keep the momentum monetized. The headlines are already doing that thing, where they treat creative history like a stock chart, up and to the right forever, please. Here's the part people miss. The danger isn't a show that's obviously awful. The danger is a show that's slick, expensive, and pretty good, while quietly reshaping the franchise into something easier to market. That's how the slow death happens, not with one explosion, but with 1,000 tiny decisions that all make sense to someone chasing retention graphs. If a suit says retention, your favorite character just lost 2 personality traits. Now, context before specificity. There are 2 big adaptation lanes in modern gaming: translate the game faithfully, or use the game as a launchpad and do your own thing. HBO's Baldur's Gate pitch leans toward lane 2 by design. It's reportedly set after BG3, with new protagonists and some returning characters. That means the show won't be judged against one clean story. It'll be judged against vibes. And vibes are easier to sell, easier to fake, and harder for fans to prove were mishandled, until it's too late. You've seen this pattern. The Witcher is the meme example. The show didn't just make changes, it gave off "we can improve this" energy. And public comments from people connected to the production fed the perception that parts of the writer's room didn't respect the source. Even if you enjoyed chunks of it, you can't deny the whiplash. The brand stayed, the identity wobbled. Then The Last of Us comes in as the prestige counterexample: high craft, careful casting, heavy involvement from the original creator, and it still became a culture war lightning rod, because modern media discourse can turn a single line of dialogue into a week-long tribunal. So, when people tell you don't worry, HBO can do it, I hear, don't worry, the studio that can do it is also the studio that can make it a battlefield. Baldur's Gate is not just fantasy, it's an argument generator with swords. Here's why Baldur's Gate is uniquely fragile: the party is the story. BG3 isn't carried by one protagonist with a cape and a tragic monologue. It's carried by a group of volatile weirdos, forced into intimacy by a parasite and a ticking clock. Their banter is half the payoff. Their contradictions are the other half. Take that away, and you don't get a new version, you get a hollow costume. Astarion isn't snarky vampire, he's survival with a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Shadowheart isn't mystery cleric, she's fear, faith, and memory grinding against each other. Lae'zel isn't angry warrior, she's a whole culture yelling at yours. Karlach is a soldier who still laughs because she refuses to let the world take that too. The game lets these people be messy for hours. TV loves to tidy. Tidying is where character depth goes to die, and that's the Hollywood fix. They'll want a main character, because executives get nervous if the audience might love someone who isn't the lead. Once the show crowns a chosen protagonist, everyone else becomes orbiting support. Their arcs get shortened, their flaws get softened, their sharp edges get filed down until they're safe enough to sell to everyone, which is how you end up selling to no one. BG3 can swing from cosmic horror to stupid comedy in one conversation, because that's how people cope when they're terrified. Hollywood likes lanes. If they go grim, it becomes another whispery prestige fantasy, where nobody smiles. If they go quippy, it becomes Marvel but with elves. Baldur's Gate lives in the middle, and the middle is hard to monetize, because it can't be summarized in one trailer line. If marketing can explain your show in 8 words, your writers are already negotiating with the spreadsheet. The game lets you be heroic, selfish, cruel, merciful, or inconsistent, often in the same act. Streaming drama loves clean morality, because clean morality fuels clean outrage. Outrage is engagement. Engagement is free promotion. Moral ambiguity is harder to clip, and clip scenes are the currency now. So, what happens? Characters get rewritten into symbols. A complicated decision becomes a speech. A messy compromise becomes a message. And once characters start talking like they're auditioning for a think piece headline, the spell breaks. Fantasy can carry themes. It can't survive being turned into a lecture in cosplay. Nothing kills immersion faster than dialogue that sounds like a PR meeting. And look, I get it. Not every change is evil. A show can't replicate interactivity. It has to trade that for something else. The question is what it trades for. If it trades for character, it can work. If it trades for content velocity, you'll get a glossy series that people watch once, argue about online, then forget, while the franchise underneath slowly shifts to match the show. So, what would a good Baldur's Gate show actually do? It would treat the party as the protagonist. It would keep the humor without turning it into quip spam. It would let characters be uncomfortable and contradictory, because real growth is awkward. It would respect quiet moments, because the campfire talks are where the game earns your attachment. It would embrace that D&D is both ridiculous and sincere, often in the same breath. If a show is afraid to be ridiculous, it's afraid to be honest. It would also resist the urge to turn every conflict into a culture war headline. Baldur's Gate already deals with control manipulation, faith, identity, coercion, and power. It does it through choices and consequences, not through characters delivering speeches like they're reading a trending topic. Let the themes emerge. Don't shove them into the camera. And if HBO really wants to prove it respects the thing, here's a spicy test: let an episode end without a giant sequel hook. Let a major moment breathe. Don't treat every scene like it has to be clipped into a trailer. That's how you keep viewers, not by screaming next week, but by making them care. Caring is the only metric that survives after the algorithm moves on. Because the algorithm will move on. That's the part nobody likes admitting. The current content machine rewards churn. It rewards discourse. It rewards "did you see that?" more than "did you feel that?" And Baldur's Gate 3 succeeded because it prioritized feeling. It gave people a world that reacted, characters that mattered, and a story that didn't apologize for being dense. So yeah, I'm nervous. Not because Hollywood can't make a good fantasy show, but because Hollywood's business model encourages the exact kind of smoothing that kills Baldur's Gate over time. The show might be solid. The franchise could still get normalized into another prestige product line, where the edges are trimmed, and the dice stop rolling. When the dice stop rolling, you don't have a campaign anymore, you have a franchise plan. If this series respects the heart of BG3, I'll give it credit. If it treats BG3 like a logo it can wear while doing something safer, I'm not going to clap just because the costumes look expensive. Baldur's Gate didn't earn loyalty by being polished. It earned it by being brave. Keep it brave or watch the gate get replaced with a gift shop. Let's be real about the timeline, because this always follows the same script. In the late 2000s, Hollywood learned a bad lesson from nerd culture. These IPs have built-in fans so we can spend less effort and still cash in. Dragon Ball Evolution became the warning label, and gaming fans have been flinching ever since, because that logic keeps coming back with a new coat of paint. That coat of paint is always called respect right up until the notes arrive. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, adaptations started getting treated like prestige. Sounds great until you notice what prestige often means: fewer laughs, more misery, and a writing room that thinks sincerity is cringe. Then the internet shows up, because we can't just watch things anymore, we have to litigate them. By the time episode 1 hits, the discourse has already eaten the story. If you argued about the trailer for an hour, the marketing already won. Now picture Baldur's Gate entering that machine. Announcement. Rumors, casting speculation. Someone says modern audiences. One side screams they're ruining it, the other side screams touch grass, and HBO quietly counts engagement like it's a resource node. It's exhausting and it's profitable. Controversy is the easiest special effect in the industry. A specific way this show can go wrong without looking bad is dialogue compression. BG3 characters talk like people with history. They tease, they dodge. They flirt, they lie. They take detours because the detours reveal personality. TV under pressure turns dialogue into delivery. Information gets crammed into lines like you're stuffing loot into a backpack before extraction. Characters stop sounding like themselves and start sounding like the plot. When everyone talks the same, nobody feels real. Another quiet killer is romance as marketing. In the game, romance is earned through time, trust, and shared catastrophes. In TV, romance becomes a thumbnail and a schedule: the kiss in episode 7, the breakup in episode 8, the reunion in season 2. That isn't intimacy, that's analytics. If love is time for sweeps, it's not love, it's programming. Then there's combat. BG3 fights aren't just action, they're problem solving, positioning, risk, improvisation, and the occasional disaster you tell your friends about for years. TV action tends to become clean choreography where everyone looks competent. Clean is forgettable. Baldur's Gate needs chaos that turns into character. Competence porn is fine, but chaos is memorable. Watch for one more red flag. Do they treat the Forgotten Realms like a real place, or like a generic fantasy backdrop with shiny sets? Real place means factions with motives and consequences that linger. Backdrop means name drops, set dressing, and a villain who exists mostly to snarl in the final. A villain without temptation is just a Halloween decoration. And yes, the culture war layer is coming, whether anyone wants it or not. Baldur's Gate has player expression and a diverse cast which attracts both genuine love and manufactured outrage. If the show leans into bait, the bait becomes the product. If it leans away, it gets accused of cowardice. The only winning move is to write honest characters and ignore the noise, which is hard when the noise drives clicks. The loudest people online are rarely the ones paying for the season. So, when I say Hollywood could destroy Baldur's Gate, I don't mean one catastrophic flop. I mean normalization, a slow conversion into safe, exportable content, edgy aesthetics with safe choices, blood without moral risk, sex without vulnerability, trauma without consequence. That's not bold, that's a sticker pretending to be a scar. If HBO wants to prove it gets PG-13, there's a simple test: show a pilot where the party dynamic is the point, not the garnish. Show a scene where a character makes a choice that isn't optimized for likability. Show a consequence that doesn't get reversed because the merch team likes a face. Give me one moment that feels like a dice roll, uncertain, risky, human. If nobody is allowed to fail, nobody is allowed to matter. And please, let it be funny in the BG way. Not sitcom funny, not quip machine funny. Funny like a plan collapsing because the wizard slipped on grease and the barbarian saves the day by doing something unbelievably dumb. If the show can't laugh at itself, it'll start hating the audience. Keep the tone brave, keep the party messy, and keep the world reactive, even on a fixed script, or it's just cosplay with budgets. When the dice stop rolling, you don't have a campaign anymore, you have a franchise plan.